Okay, welcome once again to our Rinka King series here in India in 1970. As I've been calling this series, it's the most niche save in the history of TEW. And we are moving onwards into April. We had to do quite a lot of business in order to prepare us for our next event, because our next event will see the start of the World Cup. It's going to be a six-man tag team tournament with 16 teams, all of which have been drawn into four different groups. They're going to be a group stage, quarter-final, a semi-final, and a final. To do that, I've already started to sign up some of the wrestlers that appeared for us on Alliance loans last time around. So Bruno Sammartino, Dusty Rhodes, and the Sheep Herders are all on their way in. But also, I have signed a lot of new people on Alliance loans. Dominic DeNucci, Mario Milano, Killer Kowalski, Pat Patterson, Bill Dromo, Jose Quintero, Mil Mascaras, Joseph Molnar, Pedro Godoy, Kintaro Oki, Paksong, and Masanori Taguchi have all come in. And that's because, as I said, we are doing the World Cup today. And this is the World Cup, the groups and the quarterfinals, semi-finals, and finals. Group A includes India, England, Canada, and New Zealand. And you'll obviously see this is why we're having to bring in some of the talent we're bringing in, and we will have to do the same for the next show, because in Group B we've got Australia, Japan, France, and Germany. In Group C there's Italy, USA, Cuba, and South Korea. And in Group D, Mexico, Hungary, Spain, and Argentina. And I need to put in the members of the Mexican team, which I do now know, so that I will do between recordings. This means that the next show we've got coming up for you is like this. This is the card. Four World Cup group matches from groups A and C, which is why we haven't signed yet all of the wrestlers that we need for groups B and D. It's going to be India, Dara Singh, Tigerjeet Singh, and Rajendra Singh against Alan Garfield, Klondike Bill, and Dwight J. Ingleberg of England. Then we've also got the Italian team of Bruno Sammartino, Dominic DeNucci, and Mario Milano against the American team Dory Funk Jr., Terry Funk, and Dusty Rhodes. Another Group A match alongside India and England is Canada versus New Zealand, which will be Killer Kowalski, Bill Dromo, and Pat Patterson against John Da Silva and the Sheepherders. And then the other Group C match is Cuba, Hurricane Castillo, Jose Quintero, and Pedro Godoy against South Korea, Kintaro Oki, Masanori Taguchi, and Pak Song. We've got three singles matches in between all of that. Antonio Inoki versus Frank Hurley, Edouard Carpentier versus Hansi Rooks, and Ajit Singh versus Joseph Molnar. And the biggest thing that I'm finding now trying to do this World Cup and bringing all these different wrestlers in is that it's getting harder and harder to make sure that all of the wrestlers that we need are available. Because look at April. There's not a single day in April where at least one of our talents, one of our roster is not working elsewhere. So we've had to be very, very careful about what dates we pick in order to try and ensure that we get everybody that's needed for the two shows we've got coming up in April. I think I've judged it just about right, but obviously when I sign the wrestlers for the second show in April, who are parts of Group B and D, and so I'm specifically thinking, for example, of Earl Black and George Barnes and Seiji Sakaguchi and Umanisuke Ueda, Corsica Joe, Paul de Gaulle, Eric Froelich and Kurt von Stroheim, Shia Bob Nandor, Benny Gallant, Lange Blanc, Argentina Apollo, Colosso Colasetti, and Tony Romano. That's going to add another complication, and apologies if I got any of the pronunciations of those names incorrect. I'm sure there were a bunch of them in there. So anyway, we're going to progress to April, and when we come back, we will probably be bringing you our next event. So here we are then for the first of our two shows in April. It's Wrestling Showcase in front of 1,200 people in southern India, and we begin the Rinka King World Cup with this show, and indeed this match in front of us now, because we have got Cuba against South Korea in the opening contest. Hurricane Castillo, Jose Quintero, Pedro Godoy against Kintaro Oki, Masanori Taguchi, and Pak Song. Taguchi is perhaps better known to some as Tiger Chung Lee, but we decided to use his actual name, or his other wrestling name anyway, for this one. And South Korea get the victory in 10 minutes and 4 seconds when Oki pins Quintero with a headbutt. In terms of in-ring work, Kintaro Oki was the best wrestler in the ring. 53 rating, not bad at all. Pak Song's gimmick got a initial rating of great for a segment rating of 44, which is pretty good actually, given the wrestlers in here, most of which are not known to our audience. Castillo obviously is a regular in the company, and Kintaro Oki has appeared a number of times for us. We can't, for some reason, sign Kintaro Oki. He doesn't seem to be able to open up the Indian game region for him. I don't know why. But anyway, South Korea get their first victory in the tournament, and the first victory in for anyone in the tournament for that matter. So then we go to the first of three singles matches that we've got in between our World Cup matches, and it's Ajit Singh against Joseph Molnar. Molnar will be one of the competitors for the Hungarian team in the World Cup, who will be making their first appearance in that tournament on the next show. And this one went 7 minutes and 36, with Molnar winning by pinfall while using the ropes for leverage. So an interesting kind of introduction really for Molnar. He gets the victory with a tainted win, a segment rating of 35. Molnar's in-ring performance was a 36. Ajit Singh was off his game, but we've used Ajit Singh really just as a kind of jobber really, so it's no surprise really that he should not be particularly high in the ratings in this one. Then our second World Cup match sees the team of Killer Kowalski, Bill Dromo and Pat Patterson, Canada, against John Da Silva and the Sheepherters from New Zealand. And then the newcomers, or the reasonably newcomer, I suppose, Canadian team, because they're all newcomers, this group, rather than the South Korea team, who had at least had Kintaro Oki, who'd been with us for a few times, defeat John Da Silva and the Sheepherders. We introduced the Sheepherders in the last show, and John Da Silva is one of our regulars. This is a 13-minute and 22-second match, and Kowalski pins John Da Silva as the end result for a segment rating of 44. Kowalski did a 52 in-ring performance, suggesting that he, with a bit of popularity as well, could be a really decent performer for us. Pat Patterson of 47, Luke Williams of 49, Butch Miller of 45. The John Da Silva, the one regular in this match, was only a 26, and it's clear that the wrestlers who were available to us from the beginning, who had the game region of India open to them from the beginning of the game, simply in general their quality isn't that great, and that showed here. So in the next match, Edouard Carpentier makes his debut in ring kicking. He defeats Hansi Rooks in 8 minutes 15 seconds by pinfall with a flying head scissors. And Carpentier did a 42, Rooks a 32. Carpentier is the team leader of Team France, who will be involved in the tournament from our next show, and they will be facing Hansi Rooks' Germany in their first contest in the tournament. Segment rating 38, the crowd heat is hot and rising here, although crowd rating only 5. So we move on with the World Cup and the match between Italy and USA. Bruno Sammartino, Dominic DeNucci and Mario Milano go to a draw with Dusty Rhodes and the Funk Brothers in 20 minutes when the time limit expires. Dory Funk Jr. was head and shoulders above everybody in terms of in-ring quality, and you can see here he did a 65, Terry Funk of 46, Dusty Rhodes of 47. The Italians all range from 49 to 34. Dick Worley could have done better as the road agent, but in general this was pretty good. A segment rating of 47 as we get our first draw in the tournament. America and Italy have drawn in their opening contest. I was expecting a little bit more from this, I've got to be honest, given that we had the Funk Brothers in there. Dusty and Bruno, some actually very good wrestlers, but obviously a lot of them are still not very well known to the crowd, so that was the major sticking point in terms of this being a better match. So just before the final singles match of the night, we have Dory Funk Jr. cutting a promo after the match, and he talks about the fact that he's no longer NWA World Champion. Jack Briscoe has actually defeated Dory Funk Jr. on a recent show. I can't remember what company it's for. We'll have a look at that in between events. But Dory Funk Jr. cuts a promo basically saying that Jack Briscoe may have beaten him for the NWA World Heavyweight title recently, but he will get the belt back. So this is really just to continue the Funks versus Briscoes storyline. It was just luck ultimately that another company had Jack Briscoe win the NWA World title from Dory Funk Jr. And so I thought I'd build it into the story. Not a great segment though of 19 here. Dory Funk Jr. was not good with a script, without a script to follow, but the crowd was still very hot at the end of it. So, like I said, the next match was our last singles contest of the evening, and Antonio Inoki defeated Frank Hurley in 8 minutes 20 by submission with a Manji Katami. Inoki a 57 in-ring performance here, obviously one of the top performers in the company, but Frank Hurley did pretty well too as well with a 40. Terry Funk could have done better, however, as a road agent, and a segment rating of 51 means this was the best match of the show so far. Let's hope that continues into our main event. It's also worth noting that these two will be on opposite sides of the ring in our next event as well, as Australia face Japan. And the main event was also a 51 as Team India took on England, and Dara Singh, Tiger Jeet Singh and Rajendra Singh overcame the English Roses group of Alan Garfield, Klondike Bill and Dwight J. Engelberg in 14 minutes and 40 seconds when Dara Singh pinned Engelberg. He did a 65, he being Dara Singh, did a 65 in-ring performance. Everybody else except Rajendra Singh were around the 41-ish mark. This was a decent match without being amazing, but it carried the main event to a good enough quality that it did its job in that respect. Crowd heat at the very end was very hot. And so we actually lost popularity in one region here because we did an overall rating of 40. I'm not sure that should have been the case. I mean, we have an overall popularity in southern India of 40. So why should we have lost popularity with this rating? Maybe because of the numbers of wrestlers that we used too much on the show. Maybe that's the problem. I don't know. I don't think that's... I guess the angle that we did was really poor. Maybe that's the problem. So a little bit disappointing here. We've lost some popularity, but ultimately we've come through it with an okay show, and the World Cup is up and running. Okay, so we're about 3 days or 2 days, I think, out from our next event. And my goodness, has it been complicated trying to make sure that we get everybody signed in time for this event, but also to make sure that the people are available. And this is where we changed the show now to the Monday the 13th of April, and you'll see here Mil Mascaras is not available, so we've had to remove him from Team Mexico, which was a shame because Mil Mascaras obviously is the big star and a great wrestler, and that was going to be a really important part, I think, of them. But ultimately we've had to make that sacrifice. But we have also signed a load of wrestlers. We had to bring in a bunch of guys who were kind of with us on Alliance Loans last time, and then also add a ton of Alliance Loans in order to make up the rest of the World Cup teams, and that's included other personnel changes, one for Australia I think and one for France. It has been really complicated, but anyway, here is the lineup for the next event. We have 4 World Cup matches again, 2 in Group D, 2 in Group B. The Group D matches are Mexico, which is Rayo de Jalisco, Dr. Wagner and Blue Demon versus King Kong Chaya, Joseph Molnar and Chaya Bob Nandor. This was going to be a bigger match, I think, really, with Mil Mascaras involved. Now it's still pretty big. I think the 3 wrestlers we've got are pretty decent wrestlers from Mexico, but they don't have Mil Mascaras, which felt like an important signing. Anyway, they will face the Hungarian team because they've got King Kong Chai in their ranks, and obviously he is one of the bigger stars in India, so we felt like this had to be the main event. We're also going to have the NWA World Heavyweight title on the line as Jack Briscoe will defend against Peter Maivia. We just thought we'd schedule a World Heavyweight title defense for Jack Briscoe in our company, seeing as he's just won the NWA World Heavyweight title, and we made that clear in our last card with Dory Funk Jr. cutting his promo against Jack Briscoe, but we just felt like we can sort of really enforce that with, or reinforce that I should say, with this match. The other match in Group D is going to be Spain, Hercules Cortez, Benny Gallant and L'Ange Blanc versus Argentina, which is Argentina, Apollo, Colosso, Colosetti and Tony Romano. The 2 Group B matches we've got is Japan, which is Antonio Inoki, Seiji Sakaguchi and Umanosuke Ueda versus Australia, which is Frank Hurley, Larry O'Day and George Barnes. And then we've also got France versus Germany, which is Edouard Carpentier, Claude Gessat and Paul de Gaulle against Hansi Rooks, Eric Froelich and Kurt von Stroheim. Once again, no doubt that I have pronounced most of those names completely wrong. We've got 2 other singles matches on the show, Tiger Jeet Singh versus Pat Patterson and Dusty Rhodes versus the Great Malumba. So I reckon this could be a decent show, but one thing I would like us to do is trying to increase the number of stories we've got going on. That has fallen off a little bit with this World Cup just starting off. If you look at our storylines page, you still got Dara Singh, King Kong Chaya kind of in a feud, the England New Zealand feud which is ongoing. Which doesn't have any New Zealanders in anymore because, of course, they left the company after their alliance loan. I mean, this is the thing that the amount of things I have to try and remember in order to keep this thing running as it should is quite complex. But anyway, we've added them back to that storyline. Great Malumba versus Ray Apollon still going, I suppose, for the time being, and the Funks versus the Briscoes, which has obviously been touched upon with Dory Funk Jr. and Jack Briscoe. So I'll be looking to establish some other kind of storyline in this show. I think I don't know what it's going to be yet, but I'll pick it out as I book the show. Yeah, so that is what is up next. Okay, so we are in Western India for the next show, and of course, we continue the World Cup with Group D action in the opener. It's Spain versus Argentina, and Argentina get the victory when Argentina Apollo pins Benny Gallant in 11 minutes and 41 seconds. This was a pretty decent match, a segment rating of 49, a very decent way to start the show with 6 wrestlers, all of whom, with the exception of Hercules Cortez, are debuting in this event. Cortez was not even the strongest performer. Colasetti did a 47, Apollo a 45, Benny Gallant a 49. Some good performances here, and this was a surprisingly decent contest to give Argentina their first victory in this World Cup. Then we have the first of 3 singles matches. It is Dusty Rhodes versus the Great Malumba, a match that goes 9 minutes and 33 seconds, won by Dusty with the bionic elbow, following interference, of course, from the Great Malumba's rival Ray Apollon, and this continues their feud. A segment rating of 33, and Great Malumba, you can see a 19 in-ring performance. He was off his game, and these two wrestlers don't click with one another, but whatever the case, this was a really awful performance from him. Dusty Rhodes, meanwhile, a 41, so he was really good, or at least much, much better than his opponent. And I don't know how much further we're going to go with Malumba and Apollon. Maybe they will have a few more matches, probably not in singles competition, because I don't think that they've got the ability to put on a contest that's of high enough quality. But Dusty Rhodes gets the victory here with the help of Ray Apollon. Then the next World Cup match is France versus Germany, and Edouard Carpentier leads his French team into this one, and they get the victory when Kurt von Stroheim of Germany gets disqualified when he pokes Edouard Carpentier in the eye in front of the referee, or something like that. Anyway, but it's Kurt von Stroheim's fault, ultimately, that his country have been disqualified in this one for a segment rating of 36, so a lot worse than the opener. No particularly great performances here. Carpentier was a 44, so he's obviously pretty decent. Froelich a 37, which is not too bad. Rooks was a 34. And yeah, von Stroheim was really off his game here. One thing we didn't do, which I'm going to go back to the booking screen for, is to book a story here, because actually I wanted to add a story which is German infighting is what we're going to call this for the moment. Kurt von Stroheim, Hansi Rooks, and I guess we should also include Eric Froelich, who's in that team. So immediately following that match, where obviously they got disqualified, Eric Froelich and Hansi Rooks kind of argue with Kurt von Stroheim and show their anger with his costing them the match. Segment rating of 11, which is not very good at all, but that's to be expected really here from three wrestlers who are reasonably unknown to the audience. So anyway, we've just started something with those guys. Then we have Tiger Chung Lee versus Pat Patterson, and Tiger Chung Lee is in fact the man who was previously wrestling in the Korean team. In fact, he's still in the Korean team, but there he was called, what was his name? I can't remember it, but he had a different name in the Korean team. We've obviously re-signed him now following his Alliance loan, and we forgot to change his name back to whatever we were calling him before, but that's not a problem. He can be called Tiger Chung Lee, no problem. 11 minutes and 18 seconds here, victory for Pat Patterson with an atomic drop. So good victory for Patterson, clean victory too. He does a 54 in-ring performance, Tiger Chung Lee a 36. So this was pretty good, 42 segment rating, not bad from these two. So the next World Cup match sees Japan against Australia. Antonio Inoki, Seiji Sakaguchi and Umanasuke Ueda against Frank Hurley, Larry O'Day and George Barnes. A segment rating of 44 here. 13 minutes 37 seconds is what this one goes. Inoki pins Larry O'Day while using the ropes for leverage. So it was not a clean finish. This was also the one that I booked as a wild brawl. And George Barnes was off his game. Larry O'Day was really not very good, nor was George Barnes actually. Frank Hurley wasn't much better. Thankfully, the Japanese trio were really good. Inoki 61, Sakaguchi 51, Ueda 48. And they get the victory in this one. So up next is the match for the NWA World Heavyweight title, and a match that I considered making the main event, and on this evidence I probably should have, because this did a segment rating of 63, Jack Briscoe a 70, Peter Maivia 43, and Jack Briscoe gets the victory in 17 minutes 43 seconds by submission with a figure 4 leg lock. This is the second defense Briscoe's made of that title already. He recently beat Dory Funk Jr. elsewhere in the game world, but obviously both Funk and Briscoe are wrestlers in our organization too, and are in a feud with one another. So, you know, we kind of felt like it was a good idea to put an NWA World Heavyweight title match on the show. And Briscoe gets the victory in a 63 rated match, and I just am a little bit annoyed with myself now for not trusting that these two could do this, but they really did put on a really very good match. 63 rating, very good. Let's hope the main event gets somewhere close to living up to that. First of all, God, I thought for a minute it had 30 rating. First of all, before that, Jack Briscoe cuts a promo in the ring, and basically he talks about the fact that he is not happy with the representatives of Team USA. He says that they are really poor ambassadors for his country, and he apologizes to India and the Indian wrestling fans for their behavior in the tournament. So Jack Briscoe gets a bit of an applause here from the Indian fans who have not been appreciating Dory Funk Jr., Terry Funk and Dusty Rhodes' tactics in that tournament. So then the main event, and it's a 51 rating, so not terrible. And we saw King Kong Chaya, Joseph Molnar, and Chaya Bob Nandor, the Hungarian contingent, defeat Rayo Di Jalisco, Dr. Wagner, and Blue Demon in 11 minutes and 5 seconds. Chaya pinned Di Jalisco, and segment rating 51 is not too bad. King Kong Chaya, obviously the big star of this one, did a 58 in-ring rating, and Rayo Di Jalisco was a 52, Blue Demon was a 50, and Dr. Wagner 45. The other two wrestlers in the Hungarian team weren't too bad either. So this did a segment rating of 51, not so bad. Hopefully that's enough to prevent us from losing any popularity, certainly in this region. Nandor was off his game, and Joseph Molnar's gimmick's getting stale, so we probably need to change that. But a pretty decent end to the show, but we really just made the mistake of not having that World Heavyweight title be the headlining contest. And so we did increase our popularity in one region, an overall rating of 47. We're using a lot of wrestlers too much, according to the road agent notes. But I think we're in a situation where we have to do that, because it's going to take us a lot of time to get the wrestlers who we are pushing but are not kind of the top 3 stars in India up to a level where they aren't going to be considered to be overused. Because like Jack Briscoe, brilliant performance, 63 rated match, NWA World Heavyweight Champion. None of that though counts for anything, because his popularity is sort of still in sort of the 10 region, which means that he can't be in a 17-minute match despite how good it is. So we're just going to have to deal with that for a little while and accept it. And that actually brings us to the end of this latest episode of our Ring King series. We'll be back very soon, but thank you very much for watching.